Welcome into the Kings Beat podcast. I am James Ham, Kings Insider for ESPN 1320 and the Kings Beat. Joining me today, we have KCRA 3, Sean Cunningham. Sean, how are you?
I'm great. Wish I was in Cabo like James Ham has been. That's a fun time.
I was in Cabo all week.
I hope we get to hear a lot more about it.
Yeah. We'll get to that. We, of course, are also joined by Brenden Nunes from the Kings Post podcast. Brenden, how are you?
I'm doing well. Can't complain all too much, Sean probably has some complaints about me from this weekend, but I think we're doing all right.
We have these two are in Las Vegas. I am not. I just got back from Cabo last night after spending the last 5 days there. How's Vegas, first and foremost? I mean, besides hot as balls.
I mean, it's fine. It's fine. I've been doing this a long time. I just, the younger our peers get, I have come to realize that I'm just built different, because I
are they little bitches, Sean?
Yes. There's no.
You are grouping too many of us into one category. There's tiers of who can keep up and who can't. And I like to think that I can keep up, and Sean's just mad that I didn't hang out with him one night.
Well, no. I mean, I will say this. Look, work always comes first, so that is always the big thing. And yeah, man, some people just gotta prepare. Just a whole bunch of this stuff, this little liquidy stuff called water. It gets you a long way. So, I think it's an education for a lot of the peers. That's all.
Okay. We definitely had good weather in Cabo. It was like 83, 84 every day, although it feels like 110 compared to here. It's just humid, and all that stuff. But Cabo was amazing. We have friends who have access to a really cool house down there that we go and we've stayed at the last 2 years. And hopefully we'll get to continue doing that, although the house may have sold while we were there. So we'll see.
Okay.
But this year they put a pickleball court in the backyard, like a professional pickleball court. It's just incredible. So we played pickleball like 3 days. We took a trip to Todos Santos, which is a really cool little town on the outskirts, like an hour away from Cabo. And we went to this spot called the Green Room, which was out on the beach. The food was incredible. So if anyone out there ever goes to Todos Santos, it's where Hotel California is, although it's not really the Hotel California. There's like a lawsuit pending and all that stuff. But there's a restaurant out on the beach near there that's just absolutely spectacular. So really cool stuff. Yeah,
outstanding.
Good trip.
I love Cabo, man. I need to go back. I want to go there with a big group of people, but no one can hang, man. Like like I said, built different. Hey, Brenden, do you think like people that cover the Kings, maybe in your guys' group, am I looked at a little differently these days?
Are you looked at differently?
Yeah.
I think with a very select few, maybe one specifically, but that would be about it. No, I think you're fine.
You were not surprised.
I will say you were a topic of conversation yesterday because everybody thought that you were mad at us. And I was like, guys, it's fine. He has a little bit of attitude. I'm going to buy him his next drink and I'm going to carry around his tripod and he'll be fine.
You did. You carried around a very heavy tripod through some dicey conditions. I'll add, but that was a complete act.
I think there have been good Kings related things out here as well. Obviously, Devin bounces back after a big game and getting to see the rookies. A lot of Kings related people out here too, even if it's not current rostered players.
Who are the Kings related people?
I would just say like you see Doug, you see Scott Perry, you see BJ Armstrong, you see Alvin Gentry. Nique's parents were sitting with them at some point. You see Phil Jabor out there. You just see a lot of their front office members, ownership, and staffers.
Yeah,
just one player though, one roster player so far. Terrence Davis. That was the only one we've seen.
Oh, really? That's interesting. I know, like
talks about more, but
Yeah, De'Aaron Fox used to make a trip down every year. I remember seeing Harrison Barnes multiple years. Huh. All right. Let's just start there. First of all, welcome into the Kings Beat podcast. We're doing a live show here on a Sunday afternoon, fitting it in before Brenden goes back to watch more bad basketball and Sean goes to do more debauchery and
debauchery. Stop.
But yeah, this is welcome in Kings Beat podcast. Again, if you're hanging out with us, hit the thumbs up if you don't mind. Subscribe to the channel, do all that stuff. We would love it. Also, jump on board with the Kings Beat. Go to thekingsbeat.com, get it sent right to your inbox, all that stuff. Let's start with the Devin Carter thing. The Devin Carter thing, it feels like everyone's really being hard on Devin Carter. And I get it.
Raise your hand, James.
Well,
Raise
no,
your hand, James.
I don't like when I watch Devin. No, I haven't been hard on Devin Carter for his play. I was in Cabo, but I saw the general consensus around everywhere that like people were very disappointed in his first game, and then he shows up in his second game and he's much better. Goes off for 30, right? But why is it? Do you think that we're seeing sort of this love-hate with Devin Carter early on?
I mean, you have high expectations when you're a lottery pick that comes in. And I think that, especially in a season where people were hoping there was going to be an upward trajectory for the team. And, it's frustrating for fans when a guy right after, we're only, I think, 3 days and from exactly a year removed from when it was found out that he was going to miss a good chunk of his rookie season, the start of it for surgery on that shoulder. So I get why people could be frustrated with that a little bit from the fan side. But I mean, I think that there have been flashes. There's a reason that he was picked high. I think he would have been picked even higher if these injuries weren't a thing in the pre-draft process as well. So you can see the talent there. And, I guess it does bother me a little bit when people are on a guy for injuries, which are really out of his control. And I think that every time you see him when he's healthy out there, you can see that, okay, if he can string together a good stretch of being healthy, that he can maybe piece some things together, and there's a player there for sure. So it's not always the smoothest thing. I think that they've played in a flow for the most part, and Devin can kind of sometimes take them out of that, but that's part of the process of what he's learning with being a point guard, and that's not really his role, and the Kings are pushing him into that a little bit. So I think that we've seen solid progress, and yeah, people got to give it a little bit of time, but I know that that's not fun to hear from fans, and I feel like that's where a lot of the frustration comes from.
I think
Sean?
a lot of it stems from just stems from not being able to see him play. You didn't see him in summer league, so no one could get excited about him. I would bet most Kings, outside of seeing YouTube highlights, didn't really know who he was at Providence. I kept saying that he was relatively a household name. I mean, you were cognizant of who Devin Carter was based on the kind of bulldog mentality that he played with in college, just a disruptor and being everywhere. But you didn't get to see it in summer league. So then when it comes to the season, you didn't get to see him play at all. And then just looking at the way the team was put together last year as he comes in, he's not really filling an area of need at the time. And I think fans allow that to kind of distract maybe what lies ahead for somebody. And to Brendan's point, like, yeah, patience is not an embraced word in Kings fans vocabulary right now. So, and I think more to the point too is just not having a defined position and not being able to see where he contributes the most. And here he is trying to adapt to a new position. He's had surgery on both shoulders. He's still dealing with pain, shoulder pain, as we saw last night in the game against the Bulls. He referenced it in the pain that he felt in the really awful game he had. And I'll agree, I thought it was dreadful. And that obviously took over, but I think adapting to new players, you've only had 2 practices, not knowing anybody around you, while knowing that there's some pressure on your shoulders because you have to come out here and have a very good outing, and you had a piss poor outing in your summer league debut. So I think he would point to the wins for sure. But even as his dad, right before the game, who's sitting courtside, Anthony Carter, who obviously is an assistant coach with Memphis, he's checking out Devin for every game, and he told me, he's like, Devin's gonna have a good game tonight. and he was right. He missed 3 shots, and he was disruptive. I thought he could have played a little bit better defense. He took a real hard spill on the baseline and was working out that shoulder a little bit, but it didn't disrupt the shot. He was able to get in the paint, kind of have some fast break opportunities. And so I thought there was a lot to like. I was kind of hoping to see a little bit more assist numbers, but much like Nique Clifford, Devin Carter is an absolute beast when it comes to rebounding, and he went up and got a bunch of rebounds, all the while playing with somebody like a 7-footer like Maxime Reo, who's out there gobbling up boards as well. So it was a fun game to watch. Typically I hate summer league. I don't like summer league games, but knowing kind of what it means to some of these players, it was definitely an entertaining watch.
Well, and yeah, James, one thing I'd be curious to ask you, sorry, James, is how concerning is it to you that there are still flare-ups at this point when we're almost a year removed from the surgery, or is that still sort of typical for this point in the timeline?
Yeah, I mean, like, look, he's had rotator cuff issues. Like that's going to be a problem. He's going to have soreness probably the rest of his life in his shoulders. Like, you don't typically have this type of issue unless you throw a lot of baseballs. And that's been the issue with him. It's not like we went through this with Kevin Huerter. Kevin Huerter had a slip while he got hit on his arm and dislocated his shoulder and had a tear in the labrum. Devin Carter's he's had it repeatedly done on both sides. Like Sean made the point, he's torn out both of his shoulders. So look, I think it's something he's gonna have to play with forever. And I don't think when he does play, I don't think that it affects him all that much. But I do think Kings fans, it's not his fault that the Kings drafted him and acted like he was going to be ready to play. I mean, when we had the introductory press conference, they couldn't tell us whether or not he would be able to play in the California Classic 2 days later. But that's not what anyone else around the league was saying. Everyone around the league was saying he's out 6 to 8 months. That's why he fell in the draft. So I think there is a lot of expectations pinned on him because of, number one, he was a higher pick, number 13, but realistically, he probably would have been number 6, number 7, number 8 in the draft if it wasn't for the shoulder injury. But also, I think Kings fans are looking at him as an asset now, because it doesn't matter how you turn it. At this point, he's a 5th guard. Him and Terrence Davis, if Terrence Davis makes a team, they're fighting for scraps at this moment, because you have Dennis Schröder, you have Malik Monk, you've got Zach LaVine, and you've got Keon Ellis, and also Nique Clifford can sling over and he can play the shooting guard with no problem as well. And so I just think it's one of those things where maybe there is a little bit of Davion stuff. I saw people mention Davion here. But I also him and Davion are totally different players. This is an undersized shooting guard. I don't even know if I'd call him a combo guard. They're trying to get him to work as a point guard during summer league, but that's not who he is. And you can see it. It's a real fight for him. And again, I'm not going to blame him for that. That's who he was when he was in college. You're asking a player to be a different player at the next level, and that's not going to be easy. And a different player that realistically there's no minutes for. Dennis Schröder is going to play close to 38 minutes a game, and Malik Monk, as of right now, is going to play 26 to 30 minutes a game. And that already means that you ran out of point guard minutes, and you're already stealing minutes from a shooting guard position that you don't have any minutes there either. So it's a little tough. And I do think the Warriors aspect of this is playing into it. I think a lot of fans were hoping that he would show up really well in summer league, and then it would make it more of a possibility that Kings would trade for Kuminga. But that's a whole other situation that we can get into. First of all,
showcasing isn't really a thing, especially in summer league. If anyone is getting convinced about anything that's happening in summer league, no, not at all.
And Sean, to that point, if anything, I'm just going to point out, if anything, Warriors should be looking and going, hey, he keeps grabbing his shoulder. Like,
Well,
it's not about who he is as a player. He's got, 4 years of Providence. Everyone knows who he is as a player.
right.
But it's about, hey, is he healthy? Is he going to be a contributor? And if we're going to give up a major piece, is he going to, if he's going to be the one of the assets we're getting back in a Kuminga trade, is he worth anything to us, or is he going to be hurt? So anyway, go ahead.
Well, as Brenden can attest, is what he talked about was it's basically just dealing with some pain. And I know, just to give people another reference point, like, albeit there was no surgery, like DeMarcus Cousins would deal with dislocated shoulders all the time, like all the time. And so shoulder pain was bothersome for him, and it was something he just managed during his career. So hopefully, granted, he's had 2 surgeries, one on each one, but I don't really think it's going to be too much of an issue for somebody like him. But also, we're still in July. I know people are trying to see like positions and rosters and minutes. It's like, relax. There's a lot of offseason left, and a lot can still happen. This roster could look vastly different, or it could look very much the same. And I am, like James, kind of leaning a little bit more towards very much the same, especially after my conversation with Scott Perry in terms of what lies ahead for this team. But I'll have some of that later on this week. But I think that as the roster is constructed right now, a lot can happen. I always talk about it. A lot can happen in hours and days. And that's one of the cool things about Las Vegas Summer League, though, is what like this whole city just becomes NBA centric, and so many of the deals that happen throughout the year, the calendar year, begin here in Vegas. So lot can happen. Sorry, Brenden, go ahead.
No, you're good. Last thing I'll say on Devin, and I think it kind of correlates to what you were just talking about, is outside of the obvious health that we just mentioned, I think his big swing skill far and away is just the 3-point shot. We saw it a little bit towards the end of his collegiate career, but that needs to be going down. It looks a little funky. I don't really care how it looks as long as it's going in. He did like hit the side of the backboard. Some of them look pretty gross sometimes. One of them got tipped and looked a lot worse for that reason. But that's the big swing skill that makes his fit on the team, I think, so much simpler.
Yeah. I mean, like, look, the kid can play defense. He's got an incredible wingspan. I think, what is it? A 6'8" wingspan
I think
for
so.
a 6'2" player.
He has a 42-inch vertical. He has the same vertical as Malik Monk in their combines.
42-inch vert, and on top of that, he is an incredible rebounder. Like, you watch him rebound at the pro level. I think he didn't lean into it nearly enough in his first year, but it's really tough to lean into a rebounding, aspect when he finally started to get actual minutes. The Kings had traded for Valanciunas, and you've got 2 monsters in the middle of the key gobbling up all the rebounds. So anyway, I hope it works out for him. Like, look, I think he's an intriguing player. I don't know what his value is right now, and we'll get to the Kuminga stuff a little bit later. I want to stick with the summer league aspect because Maxime Reo he just jumped off the screen, and I know you guys were there in person. And what I keep hearing is that he's leading the defense with a really, really loud voice and being very vocal on that end. What have you guys seen from Raynaud in his first 2 games in summer league?
You can hear everything. I mean, the communication is wild. And I found myself wondering in that first game against Orlando, like how much his teammates were recognizing it and actually like dealing, like responding to it, and not just maybe kind of hovering and kind of getting lost in motions. It felt like they're responding well to it. I think it's a little bit of a work in progress, but you notice it. I mean, that man is absolutely hollering to everybody. He's constantly in Nique Clifford's ear. It seems like he works more with the guards than he does with the forwards. I think most of the forwards kind of know where they live in space, especially on the defensive end. But yeah, I mean, from on the offensive standpoint, Maxime Reo absolutely sparked the Las Vegas Summer League for the Kings and had this really impressive first quarter. I think at one point it kind of dwindled a little bit. You didn't really kind of see that same aggression, but he started checking other boxes. And so I think he's had a fantastic start to Summer League as well. Be interesting to see if he gets – I haven't really checked out too many of the rosters. I think I lost you guys there for a second, but I hadn't checked out too many of the rosters to see what kind of size they're going to go up against, because I want to see what he does against some other size and length with other teams. And we've seen him challenge a couple dunks. He's getting his nose in there, and that's what you want to see.
Yeah, I mean, to your
Brenden?
point of he's not matching up with guys his size. Jason Ross just sat down with them, and I was kind of hanging out with them too, kind of shot all of it and hung out with them for a little bit. And he even talks about how there's, not many guys that are actually 7 foot in the NBA. There's a handful, but a lot of centers are 6'10", maybe 6'11". I believe he's 7 foot and 3/4 without shoes. So 7'1", borderline 7'2", even with shoes. And to have that fluidity on the offensive end to kind of be a 3-level scorer at 7'2", with an ability to put the ball on the deck a little bit. It's funny, they're really Coach Mystery is pushing Isaac to play the 4, but so I guess technically Maxime's the 5, but they both can function as both, essentially. I think there's a little bit of Max can play the 4 on offense. Defensively is a very different story, I think, and that's where a lot of the work is going to need to be done. But it's also something that in college he was told to, make sure to not get in foul trouble, because he was their primary guy on Stanford. And now we're probably talking a backup center role in best case scenario, right, in this first season. And defense is going to be a focal point for him. We mentioned the communication. He also seems extremely smart. Did go to Stanford, obviously, but he's calling out coverages out there. He joked about how fun it is when the opposing team gets frustrated that you're calling their plays. So I think he's a very smart guy. And now that he's going to get to, focus on improving on the defensive end, I'm curious to see how much growth can come there, because you can see everything is there offensively, being able to pop, being able to roll, being able to pass. He's hitting cutters on back doors.
That pass he had to
Yeah.
Isaac Jones was incredible.
Yeah, he's doing everything out there offensively. So, I mean, definitely encouraging, and a guy that I think a lot of people had first round potential even seemed to push his way to the Kings. He, kind of mentioned, I don't know if it was a slip up, but essentially that in the second round that you get a phone call, and he said you can kind of say yes or no based on if you like the fit, meaning that he did like the fit in Sacramento. And when asked why, the first thing he pointed to is he said he loved Stomas, and that's a guy that he could definitely learn from, adjusting to NBA physicality. So I think you can see that all the tools are there. I wouldn't get too excited and say, hey, this guy's going to be backup center year 1. I know I just said best case scenario, but there's definitely something there.
Yeah, I talked to some people with around the team this week, even while I was in Cabo, and one of the things they pointed out that trading Valanciunas to Denver, number one, it was a financial move to save the Kings money, right? Saved them about $5 million in salary. The deal still hasn't been announced, and we'll have to figure out what happens with all that. Jonas wants to go play in Greece. He has a 3-year deal waiting for him, and in Greece, but the Nuggets want to hold on to him. I'm surprised that they haven't just tried to void the trade and have him step out of his contract in Sacramento, as opposed to trading him for Dario Saric, because I don't know if Dario Saric is going to make the Kings roster or not. The Kings could easily stretch provision him and open up $3 million in salary and kind of move forward. There's a possibility, but the point that that I was told was, first of all, Eubanks, the Kings signed Drew Eubanks, right? And I think it's like an underwhelming signing, because Eubanks is just kind of like a guy who moves from one team to the next, just like your standard veteran vagabond, backup center. But number one, he plays at a faster pace than Jonas, and they're going to want the second unit to play at a faster pace. But also, it opens a door for Raynaud to actually play in year 1. Where if you had Valanciunas, there's very little chance of, you could play a little bit of Domas and Raynaud together, but overall it would have been really difficult. Where if Raynaud is ready in October, that's one thing. If he's ready in December or in January to start taking on a lot more minutes, you have that ability to sort of move Eubanks back to the bench, even further to down the bench, because that's who he's been as a player throughout his career. Is a guy who, sometimes he plays and sometimes he doesn't, and he's okay playing a role. And so I'm intrigued to see what Raynaud does in year one. I do think there is some potential for him to play alongside of Domas because of his ability to space the floor and shoot the three. I love the fact that he's going to get beat up by Domas in practice all through training camp, and then that he's going to learn from Domas how to become even a better passer. And so these are things that, he's a smart kid, Stanford kid. You hope that he continues to grow as a player and get bigger and stronger. But right now, the early results are like pretty intriguing. The lack of rebounding is a little bit of a concern, but again, I think that what leads us to the next player that we'll talk about, and that's Nique Clifford. Nique Clifford just seems to be ready. Is that like of all the players that I've seen at Summer League, he just stands out as somebody's like, okay, I'm ready for my 24 minutes a night as a rookie at the next level. And is that what you guys have seen?
No, I wouldn't go that far.
Maybe not 24, maybe 18 or 16.
To me, I call him like a kind of a plug and play. Like I know fans kind of cringe at positionless basketball, but he kind of is the model for that. The way he rebounds, seems to have a nice handle. I'm not convinced that he still does. I mean, obviously he has some point guard skills, but Summer League is very hard to really kind of see how it translates. But I think the biggest thing for him, especially knowing his path and having gone from Colorado, going through struggles there, dealing with confidence, there's not 1 ounce of any lack of confidence that I've seen over just his entire time. Like, the moment doesn't seem too big for him. I feel like even from training camp, that little mini camp that they had, and things I've heard about not only how the mini camp went, but really how the scrimmage had gone leading into Summer League, just him looking like he belongs. And so as long as that confidence is there, and I think will be a hell of a lot different, but as long as that confidence is there, I think his abilities for what he does is very much a plug and play type of roster piece to where he can have rotational minutes. I think a lot of it could depend upon who you're playing, but he has a skill set that absolutely belongs in the NBA. But that being said, I think a lot of it's just going to come with readiness, what it's like to be a pro, adapting to NBA life. And I think that might be the biggest concern as they move forward with him as a first round pick.
Yeah, I think Coach Mystery has called him a jack of all trades, which I think is fitting. And, first game, you see him a little bit hesitant in that first half. I think just a little bit more quiet out there. And he said that he was just trying to play the game the right way, which I think is a good sign. For me, he seems like a guy that might even fit better on the main team than he does on like a summer league team. I think he's right now probably pretty good as like a 4th, 5th guy out there. I don't think we've seen that many catch and shoots. I can think of one yesterday that stands out, but I think he's going to play that role a lot more than obviously he is right now. I'm kind of with you, Sean. I'm a little unsure on the handle. There's definitely something there, but I think just current level, specifically going left. I know left, that was also, it was in the scouting reports a lot coming out of college, but the left hand, I think, looks really shaky right now, to be honest. But again, obviously something that can be worked on. You see the baseline of it. Obviously, there's the, grew up a point guard. I would have grew 5 inches sophomore to junior year, I believe it was. And also, by the way, I think like legit 6'5". I know there's some guys where I'm like, I think he might be a little shorter. I don't know about you, Sean, but I think Nique looks like he has like a legit 6'5". Looks like he could play a 3 to me for sure. So yeah, I think there's a lot there. You like to see the rebounding, but I'm curious to see even more so how he looks when he's like the 5th guy on the floor, because to me, that jack of all trades, doing a little bit of everything, that's where that plug and play really comes in. And also he's shown up big late in these games. That first game I mentioned, quiet first half, but huge second half, big second half. Last night, I want to say the first game, he also got to the free throw line a lot, which is big, I think, for future development, especially for a guy that was known for being more slithery rather than embracing contact when he was finishing. Also, where you notice the left is when he's finishing for sure. A lot of like reverse finishes, trying to get back to his right. So certain things, but I think that you definitely can see the jack of all trades, plug and play, like Sean was mentioning there.
And James, I'm sorry, like Brenden mentioned, like those late starts, like, or not late starts necessarily, but letting kind of the game kind of develop a little bit. two things happened in both of those games too, and I think it's actually kind of a positive for him. He recognized two teammates having moments, like obviously Maxime Reo going off in that first game, Devin Carter with the hot start in the second game, and he's playing that facilitator role very, very well. And I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're right. I'd kind of like to see a couple more moments of that. But how impressive was the walk up three in the second half? I think it was fourth quarter against Orlando, and that really kind of put the game away. In just a big moment there. So yeah, he's kind of got a little bit of a maybe a little bit of that clutch gene. I know somebody had kind of talked about it after his first game, but no, I'm glad you mentioned that, Brenden, because both of those things, it's like it seems like he recognizes the moment, but also recognizes when someone's kind of feeling it a little bit.
Yeah, to me, he looks a lot like Evan Turner, like on the court. Like, I don't know if you remember Evan Turner,
Burner
but again,
Turner.
like a jack of all trades, like a guy who certain nights he'll go for 25, but other nights you're like, okay, he's fine going for like 14, but he's also going to get you 4 assists. He's also going to get you 6 rebounds or 5 rebounds, So he's going to do a lot of the little things that you need, players who aren't your star players to go do. And I think he looks like a really, really high quality role player in the NBA for a long time. But again, it's early. We're talking about a kid who, what was he, 24th pick? We'll have to see how it all works out in the end. But it does feel like there's going to be minutes for him. And hey, look, the Kings are doing this without like a super veteran on the team. Mason Jones, I guess, could be considered a super veteran by summer league standards, but Devin Carter is basically a true rookie. He didn't even play in summer league last year because of the injuries. Raynaud, what's his Dylan Cardwell. Cardwell had that huge block. I mean, that's a big boy. That's a big man. So he looks intriguing. But like they're doing this without like a really old roster, and they've been very convincing. How have you guys what's it been like hanging out with Dipesh Mystery?
He's great. I will say, by the way, I do think they have a somewhat experienced roster. Like the fact that it's Mason, Isaac, Isaiah, all those dudes won a G League title last year for what it's worth. So I think they have a little bit, but I definitely get what you're saying. Yeah, Mason's an interesting point there too. But I think Dip has been great. From my understanding, Dip and Doug are pretty close. And I think a lot of the identity that you're hearing Dip talk about, this defensive orientation, he's really big on picking up 98 feet. And he keeps telling us the percentage of like their success rate in doing so after these games. He's clearly, I think, grateful to get the opportunity and very much seems to be leaning into it. I've enjoyed talking to him. And yeah, I think all the identity stuff you hear pushing right now, it's probably for a reason and going to translate over to the Sacramento team.
Sean?
Oh, about Dip? Yeah, I mean, it's just a bright dude. Very bright dude. Sees the game in a very very appreciative of the moment. He's very close with a lot of these guys already, having some of that familiarity. You've got a lot of guys that were a few guys, I shouldn't say a lot, that were on the G League last year. Even someone like John Elmore, who's not playing, but what is he, like 30 years old, 29, 30 years old. Yeah, just been on Stockton, played a kind of a big role for them at times. He knows Mason so well. So I think this is such a great moment for somebody like him to be able to step into a head coaching role, because this is about development, and that does trickle down to coaches. He's on he's got a staff that has a lot of experience on it, obviously. And to be a first-time head coach after kind of working his way through the video room, whether it's happened a little maybe too quick for him or not, I think this is maybe as close to a perfect situation as can be. He's got such backing from his coaching staff, obviously his head coach, Doug Christie, but also a team he's very, very familiar with. And they're trying to, like as Brenden said, implement a lot of things that you will see at the NBA level. And whether it's G League or the NBA level, they want both of those to be very, very simpatico. So I like what I'm seeing from it. I think I look over at Dip during games, and he's got a very kind of quiet demeanor. I think he's very much someone who leans on his staff. He's talking to some players. He's in their ear a lot, but very, very kind of quiet and almost methodical. So be interesting to see how that maybe evolves over the next few days and the rest of this week of summer league. But he's going to be on that coaching staff bench. So I think it's a great opportunity for him.
Yeah, I think so too. Do we have any idea who's going to coach us the G League squad this year?
No, but and I'm not saying I know anything, but I think if it were somebody like me, I would think maybe Will Scott might be in the mix for that position. If he wants it, he may have already a better position set up for him within the Kings organization right now. But whether they go outside or inside, I think Will would be a tremendous addition. He's been there for several years. He kind of knows the correlation between Sacramento and Stockton, so he's very, very familiar with a lot of their pieces as well. So that one might make the most sense, but sometimes they like to go for a splash hire, so we'll see.
Okay. Let's get back to a couple of the other things that are happening around the team. Well, actually, I'll throw this out. Outside of the main guys that we've talked about, is there anyone else that stood out to you guys at Summer League who'd like to give you an opportunity to, like, on the ground? Is there anyone personality-wise or that you've seen just do things that you're like, hey, that like probably deserves a little bit of a note here?
Who's Kinsey, Brendan? Brent, what's Kinsey's first? He's springy, just bouncy as all hell. Ready to dunk at every
Terry
moment.
Taylor.
Yeah.
What's that?
I keep thinking that he's Terry Taylor out there. I do forget his first name off the top of my head, but he stands out. I think the fan base loves him too, but I really like Mason as a person. And I think he's an interesting story. Obviously not having a contract right now. Talked to him a little bit at shoot around yesterday. He definitely wants to stay with the Kings, but obviously knows that he's trying out for pretty much every team in the league with what's going on right now. So curious to see what happens there. And I would say Isaiah too. Similar situation. You're going to see what's going to happen next year. A little bit of obviously 3-and-D potential. Scott was not the one that picked him. Right now, we were told Dylan Cardwell and Isaiah Stevens, another interesting one, by the way, really good passer, played with Nique at Colorado State, are the only two ways. So kind of curious to see what ends up happening with Mason Jones and Isaiah
Crawford.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Crawford.
Yeah, I like Isaiah Crawford, to be honest with you. Mason Jones has aged out of the two-way contract, and he's ineligible. Actually, to be honest with you, I don't even know how he was eligible last year. I'm very confused why he was eligible.
He got into the Harry Giles rule somehow, right?
Yeah, he did.
I don't know.
But it's
how?
that it's crazy. I think I don't know. I don't understand it. There's some. I don't have a ton of clarity on it, but he was there. He was a two-way. I didn't pay it much mind after that, but you're right, James. I didn't think he was eligible for it either.
Yeah, he's
but
not
I know
eligible
it fell into the
moving
Harry
forward.
Giles rule. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting because he didn't have a year where he was injured. He just played overseas. And he's played enough in the NBA. Like, you can't, once you pass 3 years of NBA experience or 3 years after your draft class, or 3 years G League, you're not eligible for the two-way contract.
He also had 1 year playing overseas that complicates it.
Yeah, but he still had played parts of seasons with other teams. Secure Nabagley in the chat asks, what's going on with Isaiah Crawford's contract? They offered him the qualifying offer, right? Yes, they did offer him the qualifying offer, but the qualifying offer is a two-way qualifying offer. So if he gets a regular offer, he's a restricted free agent, basically. I would not be surprised if he was on a two-way contract for another season. And, like, look, he is built exactly like the players that you're seeing, on OKC and the players that you're seeing on Indiana. It's just whether or not he can take the next step as an offensive player. He was really good last year in the G League. I mean, he played his role. He shot the three ball well. He's also like a crazy athlete. I remember they had, they do like their jumping tests every day. And he put up some ridiculous number that everybody was looking around like, are you kidding me? Like, Malik was like, I've never hit that number as far as like his explosiveness and his ability to get off the floor. And he's built like Lou Dort. Like, he's just a big, strong 6'4", 6'5" dude. anyway, if the Kings are going to have Mason Jones back, it would probably be as he'd be on the end of the bench, and he'd have to earn his way onto a regular contract. I think the Kings have a couple of bench spots available. Terrence Davis is going to be in the running for one of those potentially. He's on a non-guaranteed contract. I would not be surprised to see Mason at least get, again, because he's property of the Stockton Kings, as far as like G League contract wise. If the Kings do bring him to training camp, they can give him, like, say, a $250,000 signing bonus, and he can still be allocated to the G League squad if he doesn't make the team. So he's kind of in a weird contractual situation where if you bring in a young guy and you give him too much money, you can't allocate him to the G League without trading for its G League rights. So it gets a little complicated. Let's get into some of the other issues with this team. Number one, they went out and they signed Dennis Schröder last Monday. I think it was official. This Monday, this week, it was official. They gave up a very, very, very protected second round pick, which will never ever convey. It's basically the Charlotte Hornets 2026 second round pick, but it's protected 31 through 55. That means if somehow the Charlotte Hornets, who are the worst team in basketball, become one of the best 5 teams in basketball, then the Kings would give up that second round pick. So that pick is not conveying, but they had to give up something in the Schröder deal. And they picked up a 2029 second round pick from Detroit. The 2000 second round pick from Detroit is the worst of their 3 2029 seconds, between the Bucks, the Knicks, and their own pick. So that's at least intriguing, but it's an asset that the Kings needed. The Kings got Schröder, and basically Detroit picked up a $14.1 million trade exception in the deal. You guys got Schröder this week. What was sort of your takeaway from Schröder?
I think he seems to be very appreciative to be on a team that could potentially last a couple seasons. We'll see what kind of happens with that third year non-guaranteed, but also being a starting point guard locked into that role. So a guy that I think people have mixed feelings on, and you can look at him being on, believe this is going to be his 10th team in 2 different ways that, a lot of teams thought that he could fit, or a lot of teams ended up being willing to move on from him. But you look at last year alone, it's kind of weird circumstance, right? 3 different teams, and he was part of a deal with Golden State because DeAnthony Melton went down for the year, and then Golden State decides to try and make a move for Jimmy Butler. That's not them saying they don't like Dennis Schröder. That's just them figuring out how to get Jimmy Butler over there. So I think he's an interesting guy. Talking to people out here about how they feel about him, again, very mixed feelings. You get some people being like, hey, this is a guard that can't shoot. I don't know how to feel about this. And other people hyping up how impactful he was for Detroit last season. And you saw it a little bit in the postseason. Even Cade said that Dennis kind of meant a lot to him on and off the court. I think there is a little bit of a veteran presence here. And Scott was, pretty blunt that he feels like Dennis is going to be one of the guys that helps lay the foundation, specifically as the point guard of the team, of the identity that they're trying to put in place. And I did find it kind of ironic that he said, he's my type of player. Like, I'm a Detroit guy, and just found it kind of funny with Dennis coming over from there, obviously. And I think Detroit really would have liked to keep him around if the price would have worked out. So I'm curious to see how it goes. I don't think he's elevating this team to another level, to be honest, but I do think that you got a capable point guard, which was the biggest need going into this offseason.
Yeah, and I think really everyone understands, like, this is it's a stopgap. It's until you find your next franchise type point guard, and he's capable. He can be a starter. He can be a starter on a good team. We've seen that at times, but I would argue he's not the caliber point guard for success. Now, I think because he is a stopgap, and when you do find that point guard, I think he could segue into being what I think he might be best at, which is being a brilliant point guard off the bench. But this can be, and I know people might cringe at it, it can be a type of a culture setter, because this team needs competitive, as Scott Perry was talking about, really his type of player, that's what you need. You need those disruptors. Those people. I mean, he has a Dennis the Menace nickname for a reason, and it's not just because his name is Dennis. Like he is scrappy. He is somebody that will mix it up and go out there, and you hope that that's contagious and that spreads throughout the team because, like it or not, Sacramento has been known as a very soft team for a very long time now, and so that's, to me, when I look at Dennis Schröder, that's the thing that leaps off the page as a major elite positive, is the fact that he can be a disruptor and he can mix it up and he can frustrate opponents and he can be all these things. And I've talked to a lot of his teammates who love him. We've seen the good and the bad with him, though. And as Brenden says, he can't shoot. He can't. He can get paint touches. He can get into the paint. He is very good at setting up opponents, and he's very good defensively. Corner three has been better, but he was dreadful with the Warriors. I don't want to sugarcoat any. He was just an awful, awful fit with the Warriors. Him getting to Detroit, though, it's because they're a younger team. They looked at him in a different light. He ended up playing a different type of role and needing something, especially in the loss of Jaden Ivey with that team. So we've seen what he did with Brooklyn when he had talent around him. I thought for the most part it was pretty good, but Brooklyn was kind of a disaster with all the star pieces that they had. I don't think he was necessarily the one that was a part of that. So yes, well traveled. I also think he's a guy that's well coveted in the league. People want players like him, and that's kind of as a result as to why he's well traveled. Whether you want to call it an overpay, whatever, I think he's going to play a specific need for this team in the positive way, because they can't get that point guard that they truly desire or want at the moment. So stopgap, overpay him because of what you need him, and then hopefully by year 2, maybe 3 or 4, depending upon what happens later in his career, with potentially even with this team, I think that this could set the table nicely for them to find that point guard that they need.
Yeah, and I want to point out a couple of things. First of all, like overpay is kind of an interesting way to describe it, because like, look, Dennis Schroeder is a guy who makes 11, 12 million bucks a year typically, 13 million bucks. So for him to get 14.1, and then it goes up 5%, so it's like 14.6, and then it goes up 5% and it's like 15.7 or something. The last year, from what I know, is guaranteed at a little over 4 million bucks. So if the Kings want to bail on that, that's totally fine. They can buy their way out of that final year. But I also don't hate the idea of Dennis Schröder and Malik Monk like being dueling banjos. I don't. Like I think that if Monk is still on the roster, he's a guy that goes out there and plays a very specific style, a very athletic player, super fun, changes the tempo of a game. And I think him and Schroeder, there's going to be games where Monk closes and Schroeder doesn't play at all. There will be games where, Schroeder plays and they play alongside each other. I think that there's going to be a lot of like mixing and matching as long as Monk is still on the roster. And I think that, like, again, in a perfect world, Dennis Schroeder is not your starting point guard. But I also think in a perfect world, like in a world that's not perfect and where Dennis Schroeder is the best free agent point guard available, which he was, the combination of him and Monk could be devastating. I mean, that could be a really, really, really strong backcourt. You just have to surround them with the right pieces that make sense. And, again, I don't think this roster is done, but that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to make some massive swing here to clear up and change the direction completely. That kind of brings us to, I don't know, the next step of this process. The Kings have been tied to Jonathan Kuminga nonstop. I know that they are very, very interested in Jonathan Kuminga, but this is one of the most complex situations that I've seen. We saw Brian Windhorst come out and say the other day that this is the worst in the history of the NBA, the worst situation for restricted free agents ever. It's because there was one team coming into the summer that had cap space, and that's the Brooklyn Nets. And they went out, and their first move was to go out and trade Cam Johnson for Michael Porter Jr. and eat up 20 million bucks of that cap space, or 18 million bucks of that cap space. They still have some cap space, but they haven't been a team that's gone after Jonathan Kuminga at all. And that leaves this really weird situation where either he has to sign for a mid-level exception, which he doesn't want to do. That's not enough money for him. Or he has to get the the Warriors to pay him, which they don't want to do, or he's got to get the Warriors to work a sign and trade. So you have like all of these different groups here that want something, and they all probably want more than what they're going to get in the end. The Warriors want more than Devin Carter and what was it, Dario Saric and 2 second-round picks. Jonathan Kuminga is going to want more than like the 18 to 20 million bucks that I think is sort of the going rate for him right now. He wants more like 25 to 30. A team like the Kings, they don't want to give up anything because you're kind of stuck in a bad situation, and they're willing to take the gamble on a 22-year-old, but they're also not over the moon thinking that this is going to be the franchise changing player that, I think Kuminga thinks he is, but you just never know. Where are you guys at with this Kuminga situation, and how do you think it resolves itself? Because I'll be honest, a week ago, this thing seemed like it was moving towards a resolution. And then I think everyone just kind of backed away and said, look, I don't think this is working out for any of us. Nobody is getting what they want, and not in like a good way, like in a really kind of crappy way. It's like everyone's offer needs to change dramatically for this thing to kind of move forward.
I've never thought Jonathan Kuminga in Sacramento would be a realistic possibility, and it had more to do with opportunity. It has more to do with, I think, restricted free agency, as James laid out. You're not wrong, and it's what I keep saying all the time. Restricted free agency is an awful position to be in for a lot of these players, and I think Sacramento's best play is to show that you're interested. Because by the time he becomes maybe an unrestricted free agent, or maybe there's some flexibility at that point when it's an open market, he might remember that. His people might remember that. I think his best course of action, it's the one I'm leaning for, this one I would bet on. I think he goes back to Golden State.
Yeah.
Going back to Golden State just to get shopped around again in December, probably, which
Correct.
is honestly shitty situation for him. But
Yep.
obviously he hasn't put himself in the greatest scenario. I think I'm very curious to see how he responds to all of this too. Like, does this piss you off, and is it motivating? Is it humbling? I'm curious to see. This is one of those redraft sort of guys. He's 22, which is crazy for talking about restricted free agency already. So I think, like Sean laid out, the fit honestly doesn't make sense for the Kings. I think they're in a pretty poor developmental position for him. But I think part of the logic is we're expecting them to rework the top of this roster. I don't know how much you should be functioning with, like, well, how do they fit with Zach LaVine and DeMar DeRozan and Domantas Sabonis? Like, we don't know how many of these guys are going to be here in a year or even to the deadline. This could look completely different. So I think it's almost about just acquiring talent that you think has upside. This team does not have much internal improvement routes. I guess you would say the guys they just drafted, obviously, and then Devin and Keegan and Keon. And Keon's situation, I guess, a little bit up in the air as well moving forward. So, yeah, I mean, I'm curious to see how it all plays out. I don't think Kuminga makes the most sense, and if the Warriors are going to balk at that offer, like it seems like they are, I also don't think that sending a first-round pick to do a sign and trade and restricted free agency is a good move on the Kings side.
Yeah, I mean, here's the deal. The Kings aren't going into the luxury tax. That's not happening. Their team's not good enough, and they're not going to. That's what I've been hearing nonstop, that, like, if they think that they can make a franchise-altering trade and makes them a contender, sure, they go into the luxury tax tomorrow. But for a team right now that looks like, could win between 35 and 45 games next season, depending on how everything goes, I don't think that they're going to jump into a situation that ties up a bunch of money. And so what that means is, in order to avoid going to the luxury tax, the Kings have to go trade somebody that makes close to what Kuminga might make. And then, of course, Kuminga has this weird base year compensation thing. So he goes out as like whatever he gets. So let's say $22 million player. But the Warriors can only take back the Warriors can only take back like 14 million bucks. So it's this really weird, like sliding scale, like very tight window that you can trade, where the Kings would stay under the luxury tax while accepting a player that makes more money, and like so that in itself is very complicated. But here's how my thought process has kind of changed on Kuminga, because realistically, I've never cared for Kuminga as a player because I've watched too much of him on the Golden State Warriors. And it's like when you're a kid and you're watching Sesame Street, and it's like, three of these kids are doing their own thing, and one of these kids, like, he doesn't do what everybody else on the court is doing. Like, why are you not following the basic rules? And it gets really frustrating to watch because it's a little bit like what we've discussed with DeMar DeRozan in the past or Davion Mitchell in the past. Like, there are these players that you put into situations and they don't fit. And so the reason why my mind has kind of changed a little bit on Kuminga is because Kuminga doesn't want to be an Aaron Gordon type player. He doesn't want to be a really good role player. He wants to be a star. And it's really frustrating for teams that 4 years into somebody's development, they still want to be a star. But then you back up and you say, okay, but he's only 22. So there is still star potential there because we've seen it. And so if I'm the Kings and I'm void of top end talent that's young, and my future is going to be a little bleak because I don't have A, the ability to sign free agents, and B, young players that are coming up that are going to take over and be stars at some point. That's a problem. And Kuminga is one of those, a potential star. And so that's where I've kind of changed my mind and said, you know what? You could go get Kuminga. If you can figure out a way to get him, you need to dump at least one or two of your other players that will eat up sort of not only his minutes, but his shot attempts. But if you want to give him an opportunity to be that star in Sacramento and see if he can average 22 points a game in his first year or something, then I'm okay with that, because at least you have the potential to develop something for the future that you don't currently have. I mean, Kuminga is younger than, he's younger than Nique.
Everyone they drafted.
Everyone. Yeah. Well, no, Raynaud is like 3 months younger.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
what do you think? What do you think happens?
I think they stay in the chase here because, like, as of right now, like what are the Warriors offering? Because it gets really complicated. They're not going to give him $100 million deal right now and then go trade him in the offseason. I mean, or trade him at midway through the season. That's not what their idea is. He can play for a $7.9 million qualifying offer, but that's dumb too. So his price is going to have to come down. The Warriors' price, they can't keep asking for something more when everyone in the league knows that they don't really want to sign him. And so you get caught in this whole thing of, like, is there another team that would accept one of the players that the Kings are offering and then move forward, like be part of a 4-team trade here or a 3-team trade that would help alleviate some of this problem that all of the teams have in the deal. And I think that that's a possibility, but the Kings I don't think they're gonna just walk away, not when the deal isn't closed, the door isn't closed there. Because, like, why not? Worst case scenario, you get 2 years down the road, you sign him to a 4-year, $90 million deal or $100 million deal. He's going to be like 24 years old 2 years from now. And there's a good chance that he averaged a whole bunch of points, because why not?
The market's different in a trade. In a trade, if he's either A, under contract, or B, goes into unrestricted free agency. So,
but the Kings are never going to have cap space to sign him. Not in the next 2 years.
Well, I mean, they could. Sure they could. You make moves to free up room. I mean, there's a lot that can happen. I mean, especially in 2027. Look at things are coming off the books. So,
but 2027, that's a long ways from now.
It is.
He's going to be an unrestricted free agent next summer.
Correct.
Right?
And you're only 1 year removed from 2027. So you have very tradable pieces to offload money. And I think, again, it's kind of laying the foundation with something. If you're showing interest, I think you're positioned well for both. You force the Warriors' hands to where you're like, okay, the Warriors aren't really built to really bring him back, but you're not trying to just give him away either. It's a situation to wipe their hands clean of, but not at the expense of, not getting anything for him. Him literally coming off, if they sign him to a deal and then try to trade him, I think that could potentially work well down the road. But the market will be a lot different for him at that point. But again, for him, the money is there. The opportunity is there with other teams. It's not there with the Warriors.
And I would advise people to go look at the Warriors' current depth chart. Really looked at it the other day, and it is booty. They Jonathan Kuminga is not a very good fit. But after their bench is a problem right now,
Yeah.
and so they kind of need the depth of Kuminga, even if there are all these fit concerns.
Yeah. I mean, this is super complicated. And to be honest with you, if he plays for the qualifying offer, not only is he unrestricted next summer, so they get nothing for him, but I'm pretty sure that he can decline any trade during the season because it takes away his Larry Bird rights. And so I'm pretty sure that that's the way it works. And, worst case scenario, we could go through this whole thing again next summer with him where he's, trying to get a sign and trade with the Warriors, but as an unrestricted free agent. And I just think it's weird. There just is no money for restricted free agents this summer. And I know this sucks for Keon, but it might have been really a blessing for Keon that this is the way it worked out for him too.
It's why I told you last podcast that you're not hearing disruption from Keon Ellis. They understand what the path is going forward with the Sacramento Kings.
Yeah, but that doesn't change the fact that he's not happy about the fact that he's playing for $2 million this year. It is what it is.
That's the team that gave him and you have to understand, James, they knew when he signed him to what I call the Gabe Vincent contract, they knew what that entailed. And if things went right and he was in a position to absolutely escalate to a higher salary, they knew what that meant. So the roster is what it is. And fortunately, as people have pointed out, we pointed out last podcast as well, he's got the same agent, Mark Bartelstein, that several players on this team already have. So they are very, very aware of what the books are like for Sacramento. And they're also very, very aware that the opportunity is golden in Sacramento for Keon Ellis.
No, it's true. Especially once you get past the next 2 years.
Right.
Let's get to the business of basketball. Yes.
It was low effort. There's
honestly,
people in the other room. I'm in a hotel. It was low effort.
That was indicative of some of the people.
Is it what he's been like to party with all weekend?
Hang out with. Good God. Go ahead. By the way, I keep getting up because I made my thermostat far too cold in this room for.
Oh, now you're too cold.
Yeah, I was freezing. I was literally teeth chattering. So apologies.
Goddamn Princess and the Pea over there, Sean Cunningham. Now I've lost my train of thought completely.
Sorry.
No, the roster is not done, but it might be done. I don't know. I think the one piece that we haven't heard much about is the Keegan Murray situation. Where are you guys at with Keegan, and what does that mean moving forward? And I guess the other question that I'll throw on top of that is, I think you guys are hearing the same thing I keep hearing, that the focus within the walls might be shifting to 2027, and they may just be not stuck in neutral, but this is who they are for a year or two while they figure out the Zach LaVine situation, while they figure out the DeMar DeRozan situation, where he ends up, or if they're going to keep him for an extra year. But it does look a lot more like 2027. And I think it all ties into the same thing. You've got the Keon situation. You've got the Keegan Murray situation. You don't want to tie up so much money, but you do want to keep players. It plays into the Kuminga discussion, because do you want to forego what could be a year where you have massive cap space in order to improve your roster in 2 years, or is a 2-year plan just unacceptable?
I mean, I think you're kind of forced to do that a little bit. And I can't help but laugh that we're, talking about like figuring out what to do with the Levine contract. Like they didn't just trade their franchise point guard for this guy. But whatever, it's what Scott walked into, not his own mess, just his job to clean it up. And yeah, I mean, I think again, this was going to be a process. I think this team is going to be very hard, damn near impossible for them to not be mediocre next year. I feel like it would have had to take a miracle. You have to hit a home run, and to do that, you got to swing big, and you could strike out. And I think that the penalties that could have came with that are probably don't outweigh the potential reward. So this was just something that you got to wait out the top of the roster. I think you try to acquire talent in the meantime, figure out tertiary pieces that you feel like could contribute to that team down the line. But it very much does feel like, and I feel like has since for the most of the time since Scott has taken over, that we're kind of waiting out until they rework the top of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. I mean, we've been pointing at 2027 for the greater part of a year. I do think when curiosity, whether you want to criticize the trade, what firing Mike Brown, all that stuff, just looking on at face value, the team that exited the De'Aaron Fox trade that didn't have a point guard and had to finish out the season, the lingering question is, well, if you just had a capable point guard. And I think there's a little bit of curiosity there in terms of evaluation and what could be possible there. Now, look, I'm not trying to paint a picture of saying there's some people that think that might be championship caliber, but when you have to make decisions on some people's future, and you mentioned Keegan Murray, for example, that one kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. I'm not saying that I do believe that they envision Keegan Murray as part of their future. I don't want to paint a picture that is contradictory to that, but I do feel with the evaluation process, they want to see what that group looked like with a capable starting point guard, with Malik Monk possibly in his natural role, things like that. And they didn't really get a chance to see that through. And so I do think that there is a genuine curiosity there. You can critique and say maybe they shouldn't be, but I do feel that there is curiosity there to be able to evaluate this team going forward and some of the pieces that are on this team going forward. And I think it will take possibly some of that if they keep this roster largely intact going into the season, as opposed to maybe disrupting it with a bigger trade later on down the road here in this offseason. Then I think that they are seeing that through and trying to get to those evaluation points.
Okay. We saw Jabari Smith Jr. get a 5-year, $122 million extension, which I can't remember. I did the math once before, but what's that work out to, like $23.5 million a year? Do you think that sets a market for Keegan, or do you think more? Do you think less?
If you go look at their numbers, it is almost identical. It's actually shocking, their numbers last season. And Jabari even a little bit younger. I personally think Jabari has probably showed a little bit more that would make you think, what's the ceiling? Even if he has kind of disappointed. But to me, again, numbers are identical. And I feel like it'd be hard for that number to not come up in negotiations.
Yeah, I'm gonna guess like one, like the offer that's being pitched by the Kings is like 5-year, 125, 130. So right around the same range. That seems fair, right?
Yeah.
25, 26 million a year. Sean?
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to answer that question because there's some bad contracts out there. I mean, one of the ones that, Jeremy Grant's contract just sticks out in my mind like a sore thumb, a $30 million a year piece. And if
36.
Right. Well, yes, escalates, right? But even from this past year. So yeah, it's there's bad contracts out there. And I do feel like if you're somebody who shows promising future, you're with a team that drafted you. I mean, that might be my target, but especially as a player, probably.
So are you saying you think he could end up being a bad contract is what you're saying?
Potentially, but I also think, like, I don't know if it's a bad contract. What I'm saying is if I'm that organization in terms of his agency and his people, that might be my vision for my contract. And whether it happens in Sacramento or elsewhere, I think I'm putting money first. I'm going after that.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, I think if you look around the league and you see a Kyle Kuzma contract, you see a Cam Johnson contract. You see John Collins' contract. They're all within, a couple of million of each other. It just feels like the going rate for starting level, small forward, power forward, whatever you want to call it, Keegan, that has like skill is around that money. And so I don't think you would have any problems moving off of him at all. And I do think, again, the Nas Reed contract that Anthony brings up here in the chat, Jabari and Nas set the market. I think that's probably fair. And, I know Joshua B here says he's hit close to a ceiling, but which ceiling? Are you talking his year 2 contract, his year 2 production, or his year 3? And so
And also,
I don't
we're
know.
talking year 2 and 3 about somebody's ceiling. Like, I have ceiling concerns with Keegan too, but there's definitely room for improvement.
Yeah, like I think all of us, we could easily see him in the right situation averaging 18 points a game. Like that doesn't seem out of the realm of possibility. He averaged 15, in his second season. He dropped all the way down to 12 in his third season, but it was part of a situation. Like I thought it was more like situational than it was like he declined as a player. So anyway, I think it's interesting.
Well, and this kind of flies in the face of what I was saying too. But to Anthony's point in the chat, talking about Jabari and Nas setting the market, as you mentioned, some of the bad contracts that I'm referring to also predate or before these aprons and that CBA. So yes, the landscape of basketball and what the collective bargaining agreement is and how these teams have to operate, that might work. That will certainly work towards teams' favors. But I do still think that for a player of that type of promise and potentially being more attractive to other teams in his own, I don't know. That would be my starting base. I'd probably work from there. That 30 mark.
Yeah, the 120 to 130 mark seems like it's about market value, like somewhere in the middle there. Yeah. Either way, I think it's going to be interesting to watch how it unfolds. And the Kings have a little bit of time before the Keegan Murray. Like I know a lot of these players signed their big deals in like the last week, but they have plenty of time here to work on this contract extension with Keegan. It's just going to take a little bit to figure it all out. Okay. Number one, thanks for tuning in. We have 257 people in here. If you don't mind and you hit the thumbs up, that would be awesome. Subscribe
Where
to
are
the
the
channel.
questions? Let's get to some questions.
Yeah.
Then, huh?
What do you guys
have a game?
Oh, that's
what do you guys got for questions?
Oh, you're not playing.
Gosh, people accuse me of being hungover in here. I am proudly not hungover.
Who are you sharing a room with?
Yeah, how many people are in there?
All my Sacktown Sports guys.
Oh, did you guys get like a suite?
Yeah, we're currently like across the freeway. I'm moving to Excalibur tomorrow.
Oh, just give it away. Cool. Prank call his room.
Does it matter? It's like the question everybody asks you here. I don't care. Whatever.
King Arthur's Castle.
Big
okay,
hotel.
So we'll start with this. Is Westbrook coming? The reason why I believe Westbrook is not on the roster, to be honest with you, is very specific, is because Malik Monk still is. If Malik Monk is not on the roster and say Jonathan Kuminga is, I would expect Russell Westbrook to be in a position to sign with the Kings. Right?
Scott Perry did mention on when he joined the NBA TV broadcast during the first game against the Magic that point guard was still a level of concern.
Long-term point guard, of course it is.
Well, yes, but I also think he meant in terms of going forward.
Boy,
so I don't know. I don't think he wants. When I referenced my one-on-one that I had with him. I'll have that out later, but I had to ask him about Malik because we don't really have quotes about. At least I hadn't seen him on record talk about Malik Monk and just how he envisions him, whether he's on the roster or not. And he, at the end of it, he said, "I look forward to working with him." And I think taking him out of maybe that point guard type position and let him be a more natural Malik Monk that what he's been, which can be a playmaking too. If he's on this team, that's what I believe they want to see. But to that point, just like if they add another point guard, like what does that look like? Who would that be? Because obviously that does take away from the depth chart there. So interesting. I mean, Westbrook could be an option for sure. He played very well with Denver last year. You have, I still think a lot of shooting and defensive concerns, but he played well with Nikola Jokic last year. Could he play well with Domantas Sabonis? I think there might be a different option out there too. I don't like the Malcolm Brogdon aspect. I know some people have thrown that out there, but I'm just curious what it might look like.
Yeah, I think there's still, some lingering conversations about Russ for sure. I think you could go in a different direction. Like Sean mentioned, I think that the Perry saying another point guard thing definitely stands out. And I think that how they've positioned themselves and people that they've seemed to be interested in point towards that as well. Like we're talking about with Russ, maybe you go in some other minimum direction, like campaign or something like that. Don't love it, but if you feel like you need another point guard, then it's just right now, Dennis Schröder gets hurt. Who's the point guard? We're right back at the situation where Scott Perry was saying we desperately need a point guard, and they signed their solution. If that guy goes down right now, there's no fallback. So I still feel like that kind of needs to be filled based on how they've been communicating.
Yeah, basically what you're saying is like the Jordan McLaughlin break in case of emergency player. Yeah. And to be honest with you, giving Devin Carter 5 games or 6 games in summer league and seeing if he develops as a point guard, that's not going to cut it. That's not going to cut it. Keon Ellis is not an option at the point guard position.
He's not. No.
I'm not. It's not fair to Devin Carter to say, "Hey, man, we're going to put you in summer league and have you run the team, and that way, when we need you in the season, you can play point guard." That's not what we're talking about.
I think what I was laughing at too is just I think I have Buddy Hield in my mind, like Luke Walton trying to turn him into a capable playmaker and ball handler, and that was just like, it's not quite there. That's obviously an extreme. That's trying to make a zebra change its stripes. I don't think it's that it's to that extreme to ask a player like Devin Carter to segue into maybe more of a primary point guard type role. I think there'll be an evolution to it, but I don't think it's nearly as extreme.
No, but your evolution point is the key there. Like, it's going to take time.
Yeah.
And like Almir here in the chat, Monk can run the second unit. That's not the problem. The problem is what happens if someone gets hurt. What happens if, again, Dennis Schröder gets hurt and then you don't have anybody? Let's see, Anthony, do you see Max getting any minutes at the 4? I don't think I see minutes at the 4. He's a 5. But I see him getting, like, he might get an opportunity this year. 10 minutes, 12, 15. There might be a point.
Certain very specific scenarios, like when you would see Alex Len next to Domas, maybe you'll see him play the 4. But like Cleveland, Minnesota, those ginormous teams, but no, not really, I don't think.
Yeah. Sean, you have anything on what do you think there? Just no.
Who was that? I was looking at the other comments.
Raynaud.
I apologize. No,
Raynaud.
I think absolutely, very, very specific. I mean, he's going to be part of the evolution as well. He obviously has a very high IQ. He knows spacing. He knows both ends of the floor. Understands where to be. But I think that's a very much an evolution as well.
Okay. Let's see. Well, this is a good question from Adam. Will they continue to try and utilize Carter as a point guard the rest of the summer games, or will they try and see what they have in Nique as a primary ball handler?
I mean, they really do a point guard by committee thing. I think their offense looks pretty similar to what you saw Doug run a lot with Sacramento, kind of flowing through everybody. I think you see it a little bit more with Devin because he's the one bringing the ball up the floor, and they want him to be aggressive and looking for his own shot as well, generating paint touches, and sometimes that leads to other players. I think there's moments where we've seen Nique doing it too. We were talking about Max's passing earlier. Mason Jones is kind of due for a game, I feel like. So it's a by committee thing, and sure, maybe Devin's leading the charge there, but I think we've already seen Nique get some reps in that, and I think we'll continue to.
Okay. And then Stevens, right? That's the other kid.
Yeah, Isaiah Stevens played with undrafted last year, played in the G League with the Sioux Fall Skyforce, which I just found out is like in one of the Dakotas. Like Miami's like, if you're not on the main squad, we're sending you to a Dakota.
Ooh.
But yeah, I did
You
not know
didn't
this
know
was
that
the case.
before.
I had no clue. I had no clue.
The city Sioux Falls didn't give that the hell away.
Sean, have you been? Yeah, sorry, I haven't been to Sioux Falls.
I haven't either, but I know where it is. I know where it
I do not.
exists
I do not.
in geography.
I just found out. Shout out to Duke.
That is wild.
But
do you know where Fort Wayne is?
Shut up, Sean. I think he put up like 300 plus assists last year in the G League. He's a very, very good playmaker, a little bit on the smaller side, but almost a little bit like Jordan Ford-ish in my mind. I think a guy that it's a little hard to envision how it gets to the NBA level, but that level of playmaking, I think, definitely stands out. Obviously, a relationship with Nique as well. They both went to Colorado. Colorado State. Actually, Isaiah tried to initially recruit Nique to Colorado State, part of his visit with David Roddy, and then Nique ends up going way later. But yeah, I mean, really, really good playmaker, and I would say like facilitator, orchestrator of everything out there.
Yeah. Let's see. Adam, you added this. I feel the summer games is a way to showcase what Carter can increase in his value in a trade. So I never understood why making him point guard made any sense. Let him cook. The reason why, Adam, is because he's 6'2". So letting him cook, like in all honesty, you need him to show that he can do something other than just shoot the basketball. And so I get the sentiment.
He can
but
rebound and play defense.
Well, rebound, play defense, but he also needs to show that he might be able to be a primary ball handler here and there, at least bring up the ball. And I think that it's adding to maybe his value a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. Any 3-4 wings to look for. The Kings still have their MLE. I don't know. There's not really anyone left.
Yeah, is there any? I don't know what the market looks like right now, but is there one that
Did Coffee
your
sign
fancy?
somewhere? I don't know.
Oh.
Did Amir Coffee?
Oh,
I don't think so. I think the main guy people are waiting on right now is Al Horford, right? I know that's not the position they're talking about, but
whether he's going to sign
I think
with
that's
Golden State
or Denver if the Valanciunas thing doesn't happen. I mean, that could be another option.
Yeah, I think it's. Yeah. I think that's playing. I feel like the Horford deal might be part of like the Kuminga situation, because Warriors kind of need to know what they have, and then the Warriors plan on signing a bunch of dudes here once free agency is kind of over. So I know like Spencer mentions Trey Lyles here in the chat. Trey Lyles has been attached to the Warriors, and actually I think would be a great fit with the Warriors. I don't think there's any way that Trey Lyles is back in Sacramento. Then again, who knows? But when they signed Eubanks, that kind of like maybe closed a door. Trey Lyles is probably a little bit more expensive of a player, although he's probably going to have to play on a league minimum deal at this point. But yeah, I don't know if that's super complicated, but like the Horford deal, like they've got their eyes set on a bunch of dudes. They want to fill up their roster with like what they used to do when they signed David West, or they brought in, Sean Livingston, like guys that were on the back end of their careers, but still had like the ability to be in a rotation and give you something different. Let's see. Do we have any other questions? Aaron Burgers. Yeah. Nique averages 9.6 rebounds a game in college as a shooting guard / point guard. He played a lot of small forward in college too. So yeah, I mean, like, look, that dude's going to rebound, which is good. It's good to have rebounders at different positions, because the Kings have realistically only had, a great rebounder at center and then a solid rebounder in Keegan Murray at the 3-4. George Muller, Precious Achiuwa's out there. I think the Kings think they're set right now at center. That could change.
George Muller has a very much a Hollywood headshot going on in his profile picture.
Yeah, he does think he's a handsome man. Let's see. Any interest in Giddey? Giddey is like, there's no way to get Giddey. I know that sounds strange, But yeah, Giddey wants $30 million a year. The Bulls aren't competing against anyone else for his salary because he's in that restricted free agent bubble, and like there's no money out there. So if the Nets want to sign him to he's restricted. They want to sign him to an offer sheet, then I guess maybe things could get interesting, but I don't think that they're going to do that. And Adam, that's the same thing with Quentin Grimes. Grimes, like most people believe that, like if he gets offered the mid-level exception, then Philadelphia is just going to pick it up. They're going to match the offer, which is the same exact thing with Giddey. There's just only one team out there that has any money, and even that money is not enough to sign him to a massive deal. They're going to lose money by signing an offer sheet, if that makes sense. And then the other thing they have, the option they can do is just sign, they can pick up their qualifying offer and play for pennies on the dollar for a year, and then go back into next summer as an unrestricted free agent. But you might still need the team you're playing for to go facilitate a trade, and so you might just end up losing the money you were going to make anyways. It's tough to make up. Again, Getty's probably his qualifying offer is probably around 9 or 10, right? So if a team's offering you 25 and you want 30, and you're willing to play for $10 million for 1 year, like how are you going to make up that $15 million shortfall? And how many years is it going to take you to do that? So yeah. Chris Boucher.
He'd be interesting. Yeah, he'd be very interesting. I think he'd be pretty good.
Yeah, I think he's going to sign on a league minimum deal somewhere, but I just don't know where that is. Was Fred VanVleet named president of?
He was.
Yes.
Of the USA.
Of the USA.
He's not so. He is not the 48th president of the United States, but he was of Team USA.
No, he was of the Players Association.
Players Association. Yeah, that's what I thought.
He is succeeding CJ McCollum.
Okay, who took over for Chris Paul.
Chris Paul, correct.
Who screwed up everything. Negotiated those big contracts for himself and then got out. Good for Chris Paul. Wait, did the JV trade officially happen while we were on the podcast?
Did it? I have not seen anything.
I don't think so.
I was actually looking at the American Century Championship results to see, because I know it's Tahoe and my guy Charles Barkley falling down the leaderboard. He had a brilliant opener on Friday. Just for a guy who usually finishes dead booty last, that guy has absolutely worked on his golf game and got considerably better. So it was cool to see, but I'm trying to find him on the leaderboard now, and it's taken a tumble.
The
Stableford
trade is not.
System, he's at -15, which isn't good.
Did you guys see Steph's hole-in-one? Jesus.
Well, that wasn't this year. That was back. Did he do it again?
Was that?
Yeah, the one where he ran when he started running up the fairway. That was back in 23. He didn't play last year because of the. Yeah, I did not go to see Backstreet Boys at the Sphere, Jess, but
I think the Nuggets did put out a graphic that the trade's official.
Well, we haven't got anything from the Kings, and it's also not part of the NBA transaction log yet. So, yeah.
I do know some people that went to go see Backstreet Boys. We're all talking about different topics at the moment, but
it's random.
I almost went over it because they do have you can go watch the U2, like they'll play the music basically with the video that they play, just the band isn't there. And I was like, Sphere? Oh, that can't be that much expensive. Yeah, it can't be too bad. It's still like over $100. Like the band is not here. Why would I pay that?
That's wild.
The Nuggets did put out the little graphic there. Want to see it?
Okay. There it is. Look at that. Is it straight up, or is there any compensation going back the other way?
It just says we acquired Nunes from the Sacramento Kings in exchange for Dario Saric. Saric. Make sure you get the
Dario Saric. Yeah. Let me. I don't see anything else.
I'm asking people, and they're saying it's official on the Denver side. I think we might just be taking a sec to get it on the Kings side.
Got it. Well, there that is. Yeah, it looks like he's on his way. It does look like Brenden has got to run. I don't know when you sent that. 5 minutes ago. There we go.
Denver put out their release. And there you've got Ben Tenzer, the executive vice president, player personnel. Jonathan Wallace announced. So it's both dual announcements from the executive vice president of basketball operations and the executive vice president of player personnel. So Ben Tenzer and Jonathan Wallace of the Nuggets.
Okay. Well, it's a done deal then. Let's see.
What are you doing?
Nothing.
Okay.
Ready to roll. Okay, so let's get to final thoughts. Brenden, what do you got for final thoughts? Oh, wait, hang on. Before that, if you're still here and listening to us, please hit the thumbs up button. That would be nice. Go ahead,
Absolutely. Not too much, man. I mean, I'm going to be out here for a little while. I'm excited to keep talking to some of the people. Curious to see, Sean, how your talk with Scott went. I know Deuce and Mo, I believe, sat down with him as well. I will say I think Jason Ross's sit down with Maxime went really well. Max is a super nice guy. He tells a funny story about skydiving in there and kind of doing that with the Stanford men's team, that they were kind of joking about it. And then they saw one of their equipment managers like walking with a suitcase, and they were giving him a hard time. Like, oh, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, actually, I'm about to go skydive. I do this like 3 times a week. And he's like, oh, we were just talking about this. And they all go and do it. And he's like, I did this before I signed the contract, just to be clear. Not going to be happening anymore. But he tells a fun story about that and having a good time. And their coach actually didn't know until ACC Media Day when they accidentally let it slip up a little. So funny stories in there. And obviously he talks plenty of basketball and about the Kings. But yeah, I think stay on the lookout for more content while we're out here till Friday.
He's a bright dude. He even kind of snaps back a little too. I like it.
Oh yeah, was that okay, Sean?
You got to bring the intellectual when you talk to him. You got to know where Sioux Falls is at.
All right.
I bet you he knows where Sioux Falls is at, and he's not even from this country.
You think?
Yeah,
I don't know if he's going to know where Sioux Falls is at.
Let's ask him tomorrow.
Yeah, let's do it. Hey, we had a bet.
Oh, that's funny. All right, Sean, what do you got? Final thoughts?
I went to an Aces game. It was my first WNBA game that I've been to since the Monarchs have folded. And it was a lot of fun. Atmosphere, I was curious to see what like the atmosphere in Vegas was like, especially I know they won 2 titles. But it feels very much like Vegas's team. It feels authentic. It doesn't feel cookie cutter or anything like that. Like I was very, very impressed with atmosphere, with the fans that show up. It was great. Made me kind of, even more wish that the Monarchs were still in Sacramento. And it was kind of a cool thing too, because Vegas is a team that was originally the Salt Lake Stars, and they were honoring their franchise players, even back from people that played in Salt Lake. And there were a couple of Monarchs ties, like Edna Campbell, who spoke to the crowd at one point when they were being honored as a group. Chantel Anderson was another Monarch. So yeah, it was just really cool. A'ja Wilson is just incredible. If you get a chance to watch her, if you're a fan of the women's game or not, I would. She's someone. I know there's so much shine on Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and people like that, and rightfully so, Paige Beckers, but. Give A'ja Wilson a shot if you haven't taken a look at her, because she is incredible talent. And it was cool to see Chelsea Gray, obviously. Shout out Stockton. She does a good job with the broadcast for NBC Sports. So yeah, it was team's not quite great. Like they should be probably better. But A'ja is incredible.
Sweet. Let's see. I don't really have anything. Don't get overheated. It's too hot outside. I don't know. It's been a good week away for me. I needed a extended holiday, so it's nice. Back on
you
the
needed
grind,
to decompress
starting tomorrow. Yeah. So
that's good.
Been a good summer. It's been a good summer so far, and we'll keep doing this as we kind of cruise through. What do we got for games this week?
They play the Suns tomorrow. Kings will play the Suns on Monday. And then I don't have it in front of me,
Cavs.
but they play Cavs. That's right. Is that the only game they have at Thomas and Mack? I think that's the only one.
Yes.
They'll have another game depending, but they're
Probably
2-0,
Friday.
so if they could be
Yeah.
in the mix for this Summer League championship. And
Summer League champions, raise those banners.
For the third time, it would be?
will not be coming
Third
back
or
down for the
second?
Summer League championship.
I forget. I know 2019.
Oh, no, then that's, because they won in 2013.
The Lou King year, right?
Yeah, that's right. Lou
And they
King, Summer League
also,
Finals MVP.
they won with Ray McCallum and Ben McLemore. We don't need to discuss the Ben McLemore situation because that's no bueno at all.
Just
tough.
Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah.
Way to leave on a downer. I like it.
Yeah.
We're continuing this, and like Brenden looks so
You guys are the
uncomfortable. He's
worst.
trying
We are the worst. You got
He should
somewhere to
just
go?
shut the laptop. Yeah, he's trying
Somewhere
to
to
go over to
no big deal.
my hotel is a lot closer too. I could have given him a ride, but it'd be tough.
All right. Well, that's gonna do it for this edition of the Kings Beat podcast. Brenden does have somewhere more to go. Thanks for tuning in. We're of course the Blue Wire podcast, and we'll be back doing more of these shows throughout. Hopefully this week when we have summer league games. I did just officially get word that Jonas Valanciunas has been traded for Dario Saric. That's about all we got for you.
Thanks.
So for Brenden Nunes, Kings Pulse podcast, and KCRA 3, Sean Cunningham, I am James Ham, Kings Side for ESPN 1320, the Kings Beat. See you soon.
I don't know my candle.